Hello and welcome to part 5 of the Forbidden Project. In today's video I'm going to be replacing the steering head bearings. So the upper bearing of the bike has gone missing and the lower one is not in good shape and rusty. As a first step I'm going to be removing the old bearing from the triple tree, which is quite tricky because I don't have any special tools to pull the bearing off. So after trying to pry it up from below with every tool that I could find, I end up removing the cage of the tapered roller bearing, and I have to cut into the bearing seat until I get it off. After removing the bearing from the triple tree, I now have to remove the bearing shells from the steering column. For this I use an old screwdriver and a hammer, and I just hammer out the shells gently. So after some hammering back and forth, both of the shells came out surprisingly easily. It takes a bit of time because I'm being gentle, because I don't want to do any damage to the steering column, but the job is very straightforward. After checking the dimensions of the steering head bearings, I ordered a set from eBay, and they come with two little seals, which you see me holding there, which I put grease on and then I put on the bearings. The size of the bearings is 26mm inner diameter by 52mm outer diameter and a height of 15mm. Before putting the bearings on the triple tree, I make sure to pack them with grease so that they're nice and lubed up. The lower bearing, which was really tough to remove, is also a bit tough to put on. So I use a screwdriver and some other tools and gently tap on the inner ring of the bearing to get it down. And then I hammer it down all the way using a pipe that sits on the inner ring without touching the bearing itself. To press in the new seats of the new bearings into the steering column, I use a big threaded rod with 2 nuts and 2 really big washers as a makeshift press. Ja, alles klar. With the seats pressed into the steering column and the lower bearing pressed onto the triple tree, all I need to do for the assembly now is put the triple tree into the column, put the upper bearing on top and tighten the nuts to clamp it on. And unfortunately, this is where it all goes wrong. The bearings that I bought weren't really the cheapest. They were a decent price, they should have been the right quality. They actually have the exact measurements that they need written onto the bearings themselves, but when I measured them, they were too tall. I noticed this after I tried to put on the triple tree, and there was not enough space to put in the nut no matter what I tried. After this, I tried everything. I checked with the other bike, and I actually noticed that the other bike had the triple tree that belongs into this bike, and this triple tree actually belongs on the other bike. So I took apart the other triple tree from the other bike, which had already changed bearings, which you can see here. The real bearings are SKF 439174, or at least these are bearings that work. So then I put the triple tree that was on the other bikes, because it had working bearings, into this bike, and I put all the parts that belong together on it, and then I had to order new bearings to put on the old bike. Another issue is that the triple tree that was on the old bike, which is now the correct one for this one, also had really messed up threads on the knot that clamps down on the bearing. So I had to use a thread file to get the threads to work again, to get them into shape. And I was really worried that things might just not work and I might have to buy a new triple tree. Thankfully, I was able to assemble everything without too much trouble. The parts went together well. There was no issues with assembly this time, the bearings fit in the right ways, and everything looks and works as it should. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the assembly because I was really mad when everything didn't work before and then I had to order new bearings and all of that stuff, so I didn't really film the finish. So I will finish out this video with this footage of how everything looks now that it's assembled. You can see with this triple tree I no longer need the bracket that I made to hold the brake distributor, but this is now on the other triple tree on the other bike, so it's still doing its job just fine. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope to see you on another video in the future. Goodbye!